I'm Simon. Welcome to an afternoon of cat herding. My background is sports psychology. You'll be very pleased to know we're not doing sports psychology this afternoon. The misnomer about sports psychology is that it's actually not really about sport at all. It's about human beings. And that's really what we're going to get into this afternoon, even though the title is How to Herd Cats. Sports psychology is my background. I've been helping athletes and sports teams for about 20 years now to get their mental game right. But my real interest, my passion, I guess, my curiosity, has been to understand and study world-class performance. That's world-class individual performers, yes, but also world-class teams, leaders and organisations. And I'm really interested to know what differentiates them, what actually sets them apart. How do they think? What do they do differently? What do they do that the others don't do or won't do? And I don't just do it because it's interesting and enjoyable, although it is very interesting and enjoyable. I do it so that we can learn from them. And my very simple principle is, or the theory is, if we can start to adopt some of the things that they do that make them great and apply them into our own performance, then maybe we can be great too. And I think there's an awful lot that we can learn from particularly world-class leaders that can help us to take on our challenges. It's a challenging world, I'm sure you've noticed. It's also a very rapidly changing world. You know, in the course of one vote, the political and economic landscape changes almost overnight. It's a rapidly changing world with an awful lot of challenges in it. But it's not just rapidly changing in terms of technology or anything like that, or even in terms of politics and economics. Human beings are changing, expectations are changing. So shareholders' expectations are changing, and partners' expectations are changing, and customer expectations are changing, employee expectations are changing. And we need to roll with all of that. We need to understand how to deal with those challenges. There's one challenge that I can see that cuts through all of those, an enduring challenge. And almost every business I've ever come across, the people in the business start to understand whatever business we're in the widget business, but actually we're in the people business. We manufacture stuff, but actually we're in the people business. And so the challenge is always to get performance through people. And I think when I look at the human challenges, the leadership challenges in there, the enduring leadership challenge is to get great performance through people. There is also another challenge that I think comes along with all of this. As the rate of change increases, one of the ways that we deal with it is to go and recruit really good people. People who are innovative, people who are creative, people who have ideas, people who have their own opinions, people who have a mind of their own. The thing is, when you recruit people like that, deliberately recruit people like that, who have a mind of their own, there's a good chance they might go and use the mind of their own. And so what you end up with is a situation where you've got lots of independent thinkers, people with their own opinions, their own egos, their own agendas. And now we need to try and get them to go in the same direction, in our direction. Here's how I see the challenge. A couple of minutes of, you may have seen.
This man right here is my great-grandfather. He's the first cat herder in our family.
Herding cats. Don't let anybody tell you it's easy.
Anybody can herd cattle. Holding together 10,000 half-wild short hairs, well, that's another thing altogether.
Being a cat herder is probably about the toughest thing I think I've ever done.
I got this one this morning, right here, and if you look at his face, it's just ripped to shreds, you know.
You see the movies, you hear the stories, I'm living a dream. Not everyone can do what we do.
I wouldn't do nothing else.
It ain't an easy job, but when you bring a herd into town and you ain't lost a one of them, ain't a feeling like it in the world.
Anyone recognise the challenge? I love the guy who's getting the fur off of his coat there. Oh, hey, there we go. So this is it for me. This is our challenge. We've got these independent thinkers, and we need to galvanise that team of independent thinkers, help them to understand the direction that we need to move in, and then get everybody to move in the same direction. But these are people with their own egos, their own agendas, their own ideas, their own opinions, their own self-interest. So the challenge is, how do you get them all to move in the same direction and in our direction? There's another challenge that comes along with this one that exacerbates it for us. And that's change. You see, typically human beings don't like change. We know we need it, because if we don't change, we die. So the leader often says, we need to change. The problem is, the person might not want to change, because The thing that comes with change, it always comes with uncertainty and unknowns, and we humans aren't very good with uncertainty or unknowns. Uncertainty and unknowns mean we get taken outside of our comfort zone, and we're asked to do things differently. And when we do that, the chances that we're going to fail increase massively. In fact, they skyrocket. So you get the leader saying, we need to change, and the person thinking, not sure I fancy that. And then the leader says something else. They say, we need you to change. Not we need something to change, we need you to change. And that means that this person is now going to be taken outside of their comfort zone. You're going to challenge them and ask them to do things differently or better. And that means that their chances of failing increase. The chances they're not going to look very good increase. And they really don't like the sound of that. So when the leader says, we need you to change, the person thinks, wonder if I could say yes, but do nothing different. And here's one of our real conundrums with herding cats. How do we get people to change? There are some lessons that I've learned from world-class teams that I think might help us to meet that challenge. So I'll share a few of those with you today. The sorts of teams and leaders that I've studied include some of the very best teams in the world. Red Arrows teams. Don't know, hands up if you ever watched the Red Arrows performing. So what an incredible team. They are genuinely a world-class team. So I've studied Red Arrows teams. I've studied Special Forces units, SAS and US Navy SEAL units, and racing yacht crews, America's Cup crews and Extreme 40s crews and Clip Around the World crews, Formula One yacht crews, NASA crews, surgical teams, all sorts of teams. But I didn't stop there, because I wanted to understand the very best teams and the very best leadership in the world. And the truth is, they're not human teams. They come from the animal kingdom. The very, very best examples of team working and leadership that I've ever seen come from the animal kingdom. They understand team working and leadership with such simplicity and demonstrate it with such elegance. And they do so because there's an ingredient that human teams have which animal teams don't. That's called ego. And the lack of ego, the absence of ego, allows them to perform absolutely brilliantly. So I went out to understand how animal teams work. How do pods of orca work? How do schools of dolphins work? All those sorts of things. And I'll share some of those thoughts with you today. Because they really can help us to answer these challenges, I think it's a good idea to start getting into the mindset of how an animal team works and why it works. So I'm going to start with a very... By the way, as a sports psych, one of my jobs is to ask stupid questions. So I will be asking you some stupid questions. Here's the first one. There you go. Why do sheep flock? What do you think? There's points on offer, by the way, so don't be shy to put your hand up. Why? Safety in numbers, okay. So why do numbers make it safer? What do numbers give them? Okay, so there's a statistical advantage. If you're in a flock of 100, you might have a 1% chance of getting eaten. If you're in a flock of 1, I don't like your chances very much. So there's a statistical advantage, yeah. Are there any others? Brilliant. 10 points to Gryffindor and 10 points up there as well. More eyes. More sheep have more eyes, absolutely. Flock of 100 pairs of eyes. Do you know, there's two things that sheep need to do to survive, but they're mutually exclusive. You can't do them at the same time. One is to look for predators and the other is to eat. The thing is, if you're eating, you can't look, and if you're looking, you can't eat. So there's a real problem, a real conundrum for sheep there. But if they've got lots of sheep, the thing is, we don't even need to tag each other. You can eat, I can look, I can eat, you can look, and we can just swap over and there are enough eyes to be able to cope. They won't get eaten. They all get eaten. Yeah, they haven't figured that bit out yet, have they? Poor sheep. So there's a couple of really good reasons. The other one, and you'll probably have seen this before, if you've got groups of animals, a predator finds it difficult to target one if there's a group in front of them. So there's a kind of a visual spectacle that confuses predators. So there are some really, really good reasons why sheep importantly, choose to stay together, choose to flock together. They could just wander off and just do their own thing. But they don't. They choose to stick together. And another really important point, it's in each sheep's individual self-interest, in their own self-interest, to be part of the flock. It serves them. How about those guys? They're not prey. They're not sheep. They're not going to get eaten by anybody. These are the apex predator in the ocean. Orca eat great white sharks. So why do they stick together? Why do they form a pod? Why don't they just swim off? Great white sharks swim off. They don't have pods or anything like that. So why do they do it? Okay, so they hunt together. They've got group hunting methods. Have you ever seen the wildlife documentaries where there'll be a seal on an ice floe, a Weddell seal on an ice floe, and you'll get probably about 6 or 7 orcas swimming up at once and creating a bow wave in front of them. And the bow wave, when they swim together, knocks the ice floe, knocks the seal off, and now they can hunt it. You can't do that as one orca. Only as a team can you do that. It's the same when they corral fish by blowing bubbles out through the blowholes. And then other orca come from the outside and tail slap all the fish so that you've got just stunned fish floating in the water, and then they pick them off. There's a reason for them to work together. There's a reason to belong in the team. They could just swim off, but they don't. They choose to belong to the team because it serves them. It's the same with geese. When they migrate together, they form a V. Not all birds do when they migrate. And actually, if you look at the reasons, it's because geese are quite heavy. They're not particularly aerodynamic on their own. A swallow doesn't need to form a V to fly because it weighs about the same as a postage stamp. So geese have kind of figured out that if they do it together, it's better. They could just migrate on their own, but they choose not to. It's the same with elephants. Elephants on the savannah are too big to be prey animals, adult elephants, and yet they still choose to operate together. And it's not so that they can hunt, because actually a tree's not particularly difficult prey, is it, to be honest? So it's not for hunting ability, and it's not because they get aerodynamic efficiency from working together or walking in a V, but they have figured out, actually, that there's a very good reason why they're going to stick together. And it actually is one of the same reasons that orca have. There's knowledge locked up in the older members. If the rains are late, where do we go? What do we do? When we've been here and eaten that grass and that dries up, where do we go next? What do we do then? And so they understand that there's good reason to belong to part of that herd because the herd serves them, so they choose to belong to the herd. Okay, what about this guy? No flock, no herd. Why not? Actually, it doesn't serve that guy, does it? Actually, it would probably make it more problematic for him. It would be a disadvantage for that guy to go hunting with other cats. He uses stealth. Stealth's the thing. He wants to be on his own. That's the way he can creep up behind the little mouse and pounce on it. Imagine if there were 3 or 4 of them and one stepped on a twig and he went, sorry, screwed that one up. That's not how it works. He wants to hunt on his own. So it doesn't serve the cat to work as part of a team. He doesn't choose to work as part of a team. We've got to understand, actually, that in order for people to work together, there has to be a benefit. It has to serve them to work together. Otherwise, why don't they just go off and do their own thing? I was asked, actually, by a guy who headed up a team of city traders in a London bank. I was speaking at a conference, and he said to me, how do I get my team to work as a team? And you remember what I said about stupid questions? I asked him a stupid question. I said, why do they need to work together as a team? And he said, because I'm their team leader. It says so on my job description. So I need them to work together as a team. I said, no, why do they need to work together as a team? And he was stumped. He couldn't answer it. That's the problem. There has to be a good reason why. Sheep have got a reason. Orca have got a reason. Geese have got a reason. Elephants, lots of other animal teams have got a really good reason to operate together. Some haven't, so they don't. If we want our people to work together, there has to be a really good reason. There are lots of teams, they're called teams, that actually don't operate as teams at all. I was looking for the very best teams in the animal kingdom, and I was looking at shoals of fish and flocks of starlings. Have you ever seen them kind of moving? I call it, they move with almost like a mesmeric synchronicity. They move almost as one. You see the predator kind of dive in there, and the shoal splits and it reforms again and all that sort of stuff. And I was keen to understand how it worked. I thought, this team's the ultimate team. There's one. So I went to find a researcher, animal teams researcher, a guy called Dan Franks at the University of York. And I said to him, how do they do it? How are they such a fantastic team? And he said, they're not a team. I said, what? He said, no. He said, the fish don't work together at all. Each one makes an independent decision, which is in their own self-interest. They work by 2 rules, these fish. 1, avoid the predator. 2, get back to the middle of the shoal. That's it. Wow. So they don't work as a team at all? No. Blimey. Here's the really interesting thing, though. They don't get together and go, which way should we go? What they do is they all act in their own self-interest. They all make an independent decision. But, here's the thing, they decide to do the same thing. Imagine if a fire started in the corner of that room. Where do you think we would independently all decide to move? Possibly through that door. Would we get together and go, which way? No. We're going to make an independent decision. Here's the thing with herding cats. If you take nothing away from this session, take this one thing. Just because you make independent decisions based on your own self-interest, it doesn't mean you have to decide something different. You could decide something that's the same. You could make the same decision. So I looked at these and I thought, yeah, there are lots of human teams that are called teams, but they don't operate like teams. I've walked into boardrooms before of board directors and asked the question, are you actually a team? Or are you just a collection of people who happen to share the word director in your job title? Because they don't work as a team. They don't operate together. I've walked into sports dressing rooms and said, are you really a team or do you just wear the same shirts? It's not the same thing. Walked into businesses, are you actually a team or do you just operate under the same brand? And you walk in through the same front door. And you have an organisational chart that you're all part of. That's not a team. That's a collection of loosely connected individuals. That's not a team. So we need to understand how this thinking works. It's the same with leadership. It's exactly the same with leadership. So I asked Dr. Dan Franks about how animals appoint leaders. Now, I went to him to talk about dolphins and orca and, kind of real sexy animals like that. He said, I'll explain it. Sticklebacks, he said. Sticklebacks, really? He said, yeah. Right, we set up tanks. They do experiments. He said, we set up huge tanks, like aquarium-sized tanks. And we've got a little shoal of stickleback in there, and we've got 2 potential food sources. He said, if you watch the stickleback, what you'll notice is one stickleback, we'll call her Charlotte. She's a young stickleback. She's only been part of that particular shoal for a little while, only just hatched out of the egg. Charlotte decides she's going to swim off in this direction. And the shoal kind of thinks, fine, if you want to go over there, go over there. And after a while, Charlotte's kind of going, oh, I'm on my own. Tell you what, I'll just join back in again. And they kind of double back and come back into the shoal again. Billy, who's a grizzled old fish, and he's been part of the shoal for ages, Billy decides he's going to swim off in that direction. And all of the other fish go, oh, if Billy's going over there, that might be a good place to go. Why? Because I think Billy knows where the food is. So I'm going to go and follow Billy. And actually, there's some really simple but massively powerful understanding that comes with this. Leadership is not dictated by leaders. It's dictated by followers. There is a technical term for a leader without followers. They're called a Billy No-Mates. So, and actually you can see it everywhere in life. Twitter, you can follow and unfollow anybody you like. And actually, on an emotional level, human beings all do that. It might tell us that so-and-so's our boss, but emotionally, unless we choose to follow them, we're not following. A thought leader isn't a thought leader until somebody else decides they want to adopt that thinking, follow that thinking, extend that thinking, and go on the journey with them. Or else they're not a thought leader. They're just somebody with a radical thought. Followers dictate leadership. So it means that we have to understand, there's a good reason why those fish chose to follow Billy, because Billy knew where the food was. There's a really important question we as leaders need to understand. Why should I follow you? In animal teams, there's got to be a damn good reason or else I'm not going to. It's about survival. It's about getting fed, all of that sort of stuff. And if I can't find a good reason to follow, I'm not going anywhere. Dan was explaining how all of this worked with bees. Not orca, not dolphins, bees. And really interesting, he said the bees have got a challenge. So there's a colony of bees. And they've got a territory of about 6 to 8 kilometres. Their job is to find the very best sources of food. So how do they go about it? They have scout bees. And they kind of line themselves up. So imagine they've got a beehive. They line themselves up, the scout bees, and they point themselves in the direction that they're going to fly. So Bob says, I'm going to fly over here. And Steve goes, all right, if you're going over there, I'll fly that way. And Pete thinks, all right, if you're going that way, I'll go this way. And Joe goes this way. And they all go and fly off. And they search patches of flowers and trees and all the rest of it for the very best sources of food. And then they come back and they have to communicate with each other how good the source of food was. They can't text each other. They can't email. They can't even have a natter over a beer or anything like that. The way that they communicate it is called a waggle dance. So if you've found a source of food that's not particularly great, you don't particularly feel that enthusiastic about it, so your dance is sort of like you know the bloke who's been dragged onto the dance floor at the wedding and he doesn't want to be there? That dance. That's your I found a rubbish source of food dance. However, if Steve comes back in and Steve's found an epic source of food, Steve's that guy who had too many vodka and Red Bulls. Steve's like, yeah, look at the food, I found some great food. And the other bees then start to decide who they're going to follow on a second round. Now, all of a sudden, Steve's become the leader because loads of bees are going to go and follow. Why? Is it because they like Steve? No. It's because Steve can get us to the best source of food. The whole reason it works and the whole reason that they can find the best sources of food is that the waggle dance is not a popularity contest. They're not there to become the leader. There's no higher salary. They don't get a better parking space outside the front door. They don't get the office in the corner with the nice view. None of that. It's on a really, really functional basis. There's a very good reason why all those bees are going to go and follow Steve. Interestingly, if one of the bees arrives back and does this epic dance and they all go and visit and the source of food is rubbish, they give them a bit of a shoeing. Listen, calm down. That's not a great source of food. Next time you come back, give it a bit more like this, not throw in all your shapes. If it was a popularity contest, the way it is with human beings, that everyone wants to be the leader because there's a bigger salary and and we're the leader so we feel great. If it was that, it wouldn't work. It wouldn't work. I also asked Dan, how do you spot the leader in animal teams? How do you know which one the leader is? Not orca, not dolphins, pigeons. Pigeons. I said, okay, come on then, how do you spot the leader in a flock of pigeons? And I said to him, is it the one at the front? He said, no. Often it isn't. More often than not it isn't. He said, the thing is, pigeons don't have eyes that face forwards. We, because our eyes face forward, would imagine that that's how you spot the leader because they're at the front. He said, but pigeons have got a 360 view, so they could be anywhere. He said, more often than not, they're in the middle because that's the safest place to be. Makes sense, doesn't it? So I said, how do you spot them then? He said, it's very simple. And it's genius, by the way. So you see a load of pigeons flying along. The one in the middle banks left, and then everyone else banks left afterwards. That's the leader. Huh, how simple. And do you know what? This light bulb went on in my head. That is exactly how you spot the leader. The leader is the one to whom most attention is directed. They're the one with the greatest influence. They're the one who, if they bank left, everyone else follows. Importantly, in organisations, they might not be the person with a CEO title. They might not even be a positive influence. The truth is, your leaders are the people who have got the greatest influence, not necessarily a positive one. You might not want everyone banking left, but if the leader banks left and everyone else follows, they are the leader. I walk into organisations and I don't look for job titles to understand leadership. I look for the people who others are following, those who have the greatest influence. If we don't understand that, we fall into a massive trap. Here's the trap. Here's a classic leadership trap. Leader says, I think we should do X, brackets, and I'm the leader. And the person thinks, well, I think we should do Y, and actually I think I'd make a better leader than you. And then the leader says, well, I think we should do it because I'm the leader and I've been on a course. And the person thinks, whoopity-doo for you. And here's our real trap sometimes with leadership. We've got to understand why people would follow us. When we get it right, it really does work. But we need some fundamental things in place in order for it to work. We need alignment, proper alignment, true alignment. We need an actual shared purpose. When we say shared purpose, really easy words. A strong, clear shared purpose is extremely rare, but you will find it consistently in world-class teams. A strong, clear shared purpose means that everybody understands why this is important and why it matters and why we have to do it well. Not why we do it, why we have to do it well. They understand that. And importantly, when I say it's a shared purpose, it's not just important to us, it's also important to me. And it's important to you and you and you. It's important to all of us individually. This thing matters. We have to do this well. So we need an alignment on purpose. We actually genuinely need an alignment on values. Not just come up with a load that we stick on a flip chart on an away day. or post on the internet or put up on a sign as we walk through the door. But actually, when you ask people in the building and say, how well do we do that? How well do we look after our people? They go, no, we don't look after our people here. Actual shared values, things that are important to all of us and all of us live and breathe on a daily basis. That's real alignment. Alignment in our vision, in where we're trying to go and what we're trying to do. That's where we need actual, genuine alignment. We have to go beyond the headlines. Lots of people say, we all want to be the best. Why? Why do we all want to be the best? Why is it important to be the best? We've got to go beyond the headlines to understand what people actually want. There are two questions that I ask leaders often to assess how much alignment there is and to get them to understand genuine alignment. The first is, I ask leaders, what is your why? What's your purpose? Why are you here? Why do you do this? And when they're being honest, lots of business leaders that are maybe founders, co-founders of a business, they'll say to me, well, I want to exit the business in 3 to 5 years. And I want to get the maximum possible value out of the exit because I'd like a sports car and a big yacht and a house and this, that and the other and millions of pounds in the bank. That's really why I'm doing it. You say, okay. You ask other leaders, they might say, it's to hit my quarterly target. It's to make sure I don't get flack off the shareholders. It's so that I can get my promotion, so that I avoid getting flack off of my boss, whatever. That's their why. And then I say to them, okay, what's your people's why? Why are they here? Why do they turn up every day? Do they turn up to get you your exit and your boat and your sports car? Is that why one of your employees wakes up in the morning? Do they go, oh yeah, let's go to work and get that boat for our boss? Unlikely. Unlikely. Are they thinking, oh yeah, let's go and get that promotion for him? Let's go and help her hit her target? No, they're not thinking those things. That's called misalignment. That isn't a shared purpose. That's you with one purpose and them with another purpose. If we actually want people to align, we need to have common purposes. We need to understand that what's important to me is also what's important to you. And actually there are lots of shared purposes. There are lots of things that we all want. But sometimes we kind of bury those and we keep the other ones front and centre in our mind. Most people, honestly, want to do a good job, want to make a difference, want to add some genuine value in what they do, want to feel good about what they do, want to feel proud about what they do, want to feel proud to belong to this, want this to be something that I'm proud to belong to. Those are actually huge motivators for people. They'll cut right through pay rises and economics and all those sorts of things. They are fundamental human needs. The need to belong and belong to something I feel proud about. But often those disappear into the background and the quarterly target jumps into front and centre. Here's an example of understanding how to get genuine alignment so that it's not what I want versus what you want. What we want is actually the same thing. Once upon a time, I was working in Premiership football. I don't recommend it to you, by the way. I was working in Premiership football. The manager came up and said to me, okay, we've got a player, 6 months off the end of his career. He's getting a bit chubby. We need you, the support science team, to get him to lose some weight. Went, right, okay, let's just have a think about it. Is he really going to want to? He's got 6 months left on his contract. And then he's retiring from football. He's played 400 and odd games in the Premiership. He's got a handful of international caps. He's been paid tens of thousands of pounds a week. And to date, he's done all of that, eating exactly what he wants to eat, drinking what he wants to drink, not doing any extra training or anything like that. And he's done that perfectly happily and he enjoys doing it. He likes the stuff he likes and he doesn't want to eat lettuce leaves or go on a diet or anything like that or do extra training work. And he's only got 6 months left on his contract. So really, he's probably thinking, I don't have to. So how on earth are we going to get this guy to actually want to change? So the baton was thrown to me. There you go. Your challenge. Off you go. You persuade this guy that he's going to lose some weight. And I sat down with him one day and I said, just draw me a picture of what you want in 5 or 10 years' time. You've got 6 months left at the club, then you're retiring from football. Draw me a picture of what you want life to look like in 5 years, 10 years. And he started to kind of talk about playing football in the park with his kids and all that sort of stuff. And I said, so, go on, you want to be active, you want to be healthy, all that sort of stuff? Yeah. I said, okay, just for interest, if you keep going down the path you're currently going down, what do you see in 5 years' time? Is that what you see in 5 years' time? And he kind of paused and he went, well, no, actually. If I keep eating the stuff I'm eating and drinking at the amount that I'm drinking, and I don't train 5-6 days a week and I'm not playing a Premiership football match every week, the chances are I'm just going to kind of expand. My knees will probably give way, my back will probably give way, I'll be, a wheezing wreck. I said, is that actually what you want? He said, no. I said, okay. He said, it's your choice. You've got 6 months left at the club. There's a sports scientist there who's one of the best in the country. There's a nutritionist there. There's a fitness coach over there. There's a bunch of gym equipment down there. They can write your diets, set your fitness programs, do whatever you want. Listen, you've got 6 months of free expert support. And he went, yeah, that sounds good. And now he's going to do it. Importantly, he's not doing it for me. He's not doing it for the manager. He's not doing it for the club. He's not doing it for any of those reasons. He's doing it for him. That's why he's going to do it. It makes sense to him. It's in his own self-interest to make that decision. So if we want to herd cats, there are some really simple things. Simple doesn't mean easy, by the way. Simple means uncomplicated. Easy means it's not difficult. This stuff isn't easy, but it is simple. What if we had a really strong, clear, shared purpose? One that everybody bought into. One where my purpose and our purpose was absolutely aligned. And it was clear. We all understood it, and we understood it in the same way. What if we had that as a starting point? What if we had something that we could all genuinely feel proud about? Something we all wanted to belong to, and were proud to belong to. Something that we were willing to collectively invest into. Invest means give of ourselves. It means give extra energy, spend extra time, give more of me. There's a real difference between people who play for the team and people who play in the team. Those who play for the team invest themselves in the team. People who play in the team turn up, pull on the shirt, walk out. It's different. It's really different. So when we've got people who are willing to collectively invest because there's something they care about that they want to collectively invest into, now we've got people who are playing for the team. And we've got to have something that we all independently want and independently choose. When we've got that, we've got something really, really powerful. Because remember, people are going to make an independent decision based on their own self-interest. Why are they going to choose to go in the same direction? Why would they choose to go in the same direction? Choose to. Why are they going to choose to? Because it serves them. If we can understand that, we've nailed cat herding. So here's a question then. Let's take it back to cats, feline cats, actual cats with whiskers and stuff like that. Those lot. How do you herd cats? How could you herd cats? What do you reckon? A couple of ideas. Say again? With dogs. Very good. So, if we created a cat-shaped exit in the corner of this room and introduced a pack of wolves in that corner of the room, what do you think the cats might independently choose to do without having to be cajoled in any way? They're going to run for the exit. Absolutely. What if we, in a very humane way, just sort of took the food away for about 24 hours and then placed some food in that corner of the room? What do you think the cats might independently choose to do? They might just make their way into this corner of the room without having to be forced or cajoled or dragged or anything else. They're just going to decide to, independently. What if we turned up the air conditioning and it got a bit chilly in here and we put an electric blanket in that corner of the room? What do you think the cats might independently choose to do of their own volition because they want to? They might just make their way into this corner of the room. And actually, when we understand that, we can start to find out that there are some fundamental things that cats and human beings all think are quite important. Nourishment. Doesn't have to be food nourishment. It could be spiritual nourishment, intellectual nourishment. So nourishment, safety, security, comfort, those things. So actually, if we can get something that people want to move towards, we don't really have to herd them. They'll do it themselves. There's our keys to cat herding. I take inspiration from all sorts of places, all sorts of people, all sorts of realms. Children are a particular form of inspiration for me. Has anybody ever watched The Secret Life of 4-Year-Olds? Okay. If you haven't, it's worth it. It's not just entertaining, it's very educational as well for adults. We can learn an awful lot from them. The myth always is that children learn from adults. The truth is, when we switch on, we can probably learn more from children. I'm going to introduce you to a leader who's 4 years old, and he is an exceptional leader. The team of researchers who were, as they do, they kind of observe and they comment upon what's going on from their little booth, the researchers. So there's a team of researchers, and they're commenting on why this guy in particular, a little lad called Christian, why this guy became a leader, not any of the others. And there's some very simple principles, which I'll just share with you now. Meet Christian. Christian is 4 years old, and he's an exceptional leader. Christian was part of a documentary series on Channel 4. A team of researchers placed hidden cameras and microphones in a nursery and captured the authentic interactions of 10 4-year-old children. Towards the end of the documentary, one child, Christian, emerged as a natural leader. But how did he do it? Why did the other children choose to follow him? The first thing that Christian did was he stood up to the bully in the nursery. The bully was a lot bigger than Christian. And at one point, the bullies disrupted Christian's game. Christian just looked at him. He just gazed at him, into his eyes. And the message from Christian to the bully was, I'm not going to take this rubbish. I'm not going to be bullied. Christian knew the difference between right and wrong, and he was able to stand up for what is right. He also stood up for what's right when the big bully tried to pull his friend off of his chair. Christian said to the bully, please don't do that. That's not nice. He's my friend. As a result, the other children begin to root for Christian in competitions and races. He starts to gain followers. He's won their friendship, their trust and their respect by being there for them. On one occasion, Christian begins to build a police station. He has the vision and is able to share it with others. Other children ask if they can play too. Christian invites them in, and in doing so enables them to belong to the group. Belonging is a fundamental human need. It's often illustrated in children. They want friends, they want praise and love and approval, just like adults. Christian provides this for them. He gives them a group that they can belong to and want to be a part of. Christian also explains how they can be involved. The other children want to help, so they ask which bricks they should get and where they should put them. Here, is this all right? Is this big enough? As the leader, Christian provides them with direction. He says, that one's too small. That one's just right. Yes, thank you. Importantly, he's also giving them a way to be fulfilled through the activity. When the teacher asks the boys about the police station, they talk about their police station. Christian doesn't see it as his creation either. He doesn't try and take credit for it. He views it as their creation. Christian is 4 years old, and he shows lots of leadership qualities that you'd expect to find in a nursery. He understands right from wrong, and he has the courage to stand up for what's right. He sticks up for his friends, and he puts himself out for them. He shares and he involves other people. He plays nicely. He's honest with people. He says please and thank you. He's got good manners. The question is, how many adult leaders do you know that embody all of those principles? So on that note, ladies and gentlemen, I shall say thank you very much. Have we got time for questions? Do you want to do questions? Yeah. Are there any questions? Yes. Sir.
Topical question about football last night.
Okay. Is this the Welsh game?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, not necessarily about last night. One thing that really stood out, I'm sure this for everybody else with the Welsh team, is that they really looked like a team. They really stood out as a team, didn't they? The way that they enjoyed each other's company, the way that they celebrated success together, the way that they all, was obviously a bit of a talisman for them, but not in the same way that perhaps Cristiano Ronaldo is, an individual. What do you think the secret sauce is for Wales to add up to the last night?
Well, I don't think they lost it last night, necessarily. I think they might have panicked a little bit, and I think one or two tried to almost step beyond the team and become the superstar individual. rather than letting the team function. But one thing they do have is something that Leicester City also had in common. They understand that they're not going to be, apart from one or two, they're not going to be superstar individuals. The way they're going to achieve success is together. They're not going to stand out and get a multi-billion-dollar contract from anywhere. If they want success, it happens as a team. Leicester City also kind of had that understanding that nobody here is going to make it as an individual superstar. We're only going to make it together. There's a rock band that I studied a while ago, and I was talking to the drummer, and he said, with the best will in the world, I'm never going to be a superstar musician on my own as a drummer. I'm never going to have a solo career. The only way I'm going to be successful is when the band are. And these teams have got that understanding. That's why they're willing to invest into the team, because the team is their vehicle for becoming successful. In doing so, they also find something they're proud to belong to, they want to belong to, a group of people they want to share that experience with and go on the journey with and all that sort of stuff. But there does start off with a really kind of, I guess almost crystal clear understanding that unless I invest into the team, I'm not really going to achieve success.
It's not so much a question, it's just a request, and don't think it's the wrong way. All the examples you gave of good leadership involve boys, and one example you gave of negative leadership of people who weren't thought was a girl, Charlotte. And it'd be really useful, I just noticed it, it's just I went to a session earlier on, the subconscious message being given, and all the examples you've given of good leaders all involve male.
Yeah, well, actually, no. So the orca, matriarch. The elephant, matriarch. Most of them, obviously, that we were talking about are animal teams. So, the bees, the worker bees that do the flying around, they're boys. The queen bee's always a female. So
bring that out in the speech, just because I noticed that a lot of conferences like this, subconsciously, without even thinking about meaning to, you sort of infuse this well into sort of. I thought it was cool. Sorry? I thought it was cool. I have no problem with any of that. No, I don't. But it's just the subconscious that you don't notice, and it's not conscious effort. It's subconscious that the message that you're passing.
Everybody sees in the world what they look for, and yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's an interesting question, actually. The question is, how do you sustain your performance? Because as we saw with the England football team, their performance took a nosedive. And they performed well below par. They're very capable individuals. They're actually more capable as a team than they performed on the field. So how do you get that disparity between what they're potentially capable of and what they actually produce? There's some quite simple mechanics behind it. Focus is the key. And a lot of the time, people screw up their performance because they're not focused on the right thing at the right time. In sport, you'll often see teams and individuals who start to focus on the outcome and not on the process. In real simplistic terms, I said to a tennis player once, I said, if you want to play well, you have to focus more, be more interested and care more about how you hit the ball than where the ball lands. And this particular player said to me, that's ridiculous. Because if the ball lands that side of the white line, it's out and I lose points. But if it lands that side, it's in and I get points. I said, yeah, I know all of that. But you still have to be more interested and care more about how you hit it. Because if you're focused up here on how you hit it, you'll connect well with it. You'll get the spin right, the trajectory right, the power right, because you're focused here. If you're focused down there, you're going to screw this bit up because you're not focused on it. So there's a spiral. There are two spirals that happen. One, where when you are focused on the right thing at the right time, you execute well in the moment. And if you continually execute well in the moment, you become confident. And confidence always comes from evidence, the evidence that I've done well. And because you're confident and you want to go and do it again, you're motivated. So you get this really nice upward spiral of confidence, focus, motivation that all feeds itself. Equally, if you're not focused on the right thing at the right time, and for a lot of people it's because they become outcome focused that they screw up in the moment, If you're not focused on the right thing at the right time, you make a mistake. Most people don't like making mistakes, so they want to find out why, so they analyse it. And then they beat themselves up, they think too much, try too hard, and make a bigger mistake. And then they end up going down a wormhole. So there's a kind of a really clear piece in the middle. Focus dictates which way we go. But we've got to understand focus follows interest, and interest follows what we really care about. If we care too much about the outcome, this is where England football come in. If we care about winning and losing more than playing well, if we care about what the media say about us, or looking good or avoiding looking bad or whatever, that's going to drive us focusing on the outcome, which is going to drive us screwing up in the moment and not even being able to make a 5-yard pass and forcing things that aren't there in order to try and engineer the outcome, not just execute the process. And because we do that, we end up screwing up. That's the short answer. Is there one more? Yes, sir.
You talked about earlier with a football team and them coming together because they could only be really successful if they came together. What happens if you have in that team one person who knows that they can be successful on their own, and yet you still want them to work within the team with the others? How do you...
Well, actually, Wales are a good example of this. But the guy who was the superstar individual wanted it for the team.
How do you encourage that in somebody who might not?
Again, there's got to be a good reason for it. I think that particular individual just wanted it, wanted the team to do well. May have even realised that just because I'm a superstar individual, it doesn't mean we're going to perform. And what I'd really love is for us to be successful together. It's almost that reason that transcends your reason, that you can buy into, because actually us doing really well is more important to me than me doing well. But I don't think you can coach it necessarily in people. You can certainly raise their awareness to it. You can't make people do it. Ultimately, as leaders, what we might need to do is say, either I go with the superstar individual who might be culturally quite bad for us, or I say, no, let's focus on the team. We don't want the superstar individual. We'll just go with the team. All we want is a team that's going to perform really, really well. Because actually the end outcome is we might perform worse by having you in rather than having you out. Are we done for time? What do we like? What have we got? Time for one more? No? Okay, we're done. Thank you very much.